I'm starting this new series on heroes of living your own life, and I'm going back into sort of the biographies of philosophers, psychologists, interesting people who have in one way or another led their own lives and are a source of inspiration. So I'm going to start posting these on both in the vault in school and then on my YouTube channel as well. But I came across Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and I just like the opening of it. He wrote one of the earliest biographies. He was like, this is like 3 centuries ago, and he decided at the end of his life to write a book called Confessions. And just a very honest portrait of who he was. And so this is how he opens the book. I have entered upon a performance which is without example, whose accomplishments will have no imitator. I mean to present my fellow mortals with a man in all the integrity of nature, and this man shall be himself, myself. I know my heart and have studied mankind. I am not made like anyone I have been acquainted with, perhaps like no one in existence. If not better, I at least claim originality. And whether nature did wisely in breaking the mold with which she formed me can only be determined after having read this work. Whenever the last trumpet shall sound, I will present myself before the sovereign judge with this book in my hand and loudly proclaim, thus I have acted. These were my thoughts. Such was I. With equal freedom and veracity, I have related what was laudable or wicked. I have concealed no crimes, added no virtues. And if I have sometimes introduced superfluous ornament, it was merely to occupy a void occasioned by defective memory. I may have supposed that certain, which only I knew to be probable, but have never asserted as truth, a conscious falsehood. Anyways, it goes on. But I love the boldness with which he claimed that there was never another like him in history. And so obviously that's something, that we talk about here in terms of live your own life. And you might think that, that's an unattainable ideal, but when you actually read of his life, he wasn't living according to ideals. He was just expressing himself. And in many ways, he failed. Like, he had 5 children, and he gave them all up for adoption. And yet he wrote one of a classic text on the education of children, which is still relevant today, thinking that how they were being educated was trash. They were filling them full of content. And his point with children was that they needed to be educated according to their developmental stage, not just filled with content. So it was radical then, and it's still relevant today. And yet he wasn't an ideal character. He's simply saying, this is who I am. Like, take it or leave it. He followed his nature and maybe the dictates of nature, which caught him up very much between the ideal of sort of a perfect life and his own life as it was. And yet he distinguished 2 kinds of love. And one was the love of self, which was just the love of life, just loving life. And the love, which he called amour propre, like the love appropriate to society, the love which was like living into the expectations of the culture and of society at large, which he detested. And so like he never wrote about people pleasing per se, but this is what he was saying, that he noticed, like so many of the other heroes I want to talk about, that so many were living according to the norms and conventions of the larger society, that nobody seemed to possess the courage to be themselves, come what may. And so his life is an example, if we're going to be an original self and not a copy, not an imitation. His life is an example that of how of kind of radical self-acceptance. I mean, he talks about even his sexual proclivities, in this book, Confessions. And it's just like, this is my kink. Like, it's just who I am. But this was one of the first biographies ever written. So I find that interesting. And yet he found a way to affirm himself, not because he was a sort of towering moral figure, but because this is how nature slash God slash source showed up in a human being. So he somehow escaped that societal pressure to be what everyone else thought he should be, to be a carbon copy of everybody else, to be the virtuous moral one. He escaped the sort of the religious dictates of his age to say, yeah, I hear you, but this is how I'm actually showing up. And there's something about the choice for the freedom of self-expression. And this had implications for his political theories as well, where he railed against the tendency towards totalitarianism and the reign of kings and the aristocracy. He was writing before Marx, and he was claiming that we're all equal and therefore we're all free. And so we have to create the political context for people that maximizes freedom. So, an inspiring read for me. And it's not exactly like this is our fear, right? Because I feel like now I have to justify. It's like, oh, we're going to be free. It's going to be anarchy. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be immoral. And yeah, that's not what actually happens. It's not like he was loved by a lot of people and, respected, and he didn't go around hurting people. He just didn't allow himself to fit in, you know, where to fit in would be to contort himself. But I think that's a fear we all contend with. If we actually sort of be an original, then what's going to happen? Like, how are we going to express our instinctual nature? What Freud called the id. Is that going to get us in trouble? And so you've got your instinctual nature, and then you've got, in Freudian views, the superego that clamps down on that the ideal self that keeps it in check. But I'm not sure that, and for a lot of people, that's still the role of religion, because if we don't function according to that sort of deistic model of God, who sort of is seated on a throne and is our moral judge, that it'll be complete chaos. But in fact, maybe there's something about natural instincts that is ultimately cooperative and comes from the place, the realization that in order to thrive, where there's a built-in cooperative synergy. It's like not like the neo-Darwinian theory of evolution, where you get theorists like biologists like Lynn Margulis, who said, no, it's not actually like, you know, red and tooth and claw. It's not all competition. There's a lot of cooperation going where at the biological level, you realize that it actually works better for everyone to find synergies, to discover the intelligence of uh, synergistic living. Anyways, I'm a long ways from where I started here, but it's a maybe a pitch to for originality, to be like, to not imitate, to discover the courage to stand alone when necessary, and to express ourselves even when, you know, the world's going tisk tisk.